You don't fail because you're incapable. You fail because you keep starting over. But the moment you force yourself to be consistent, something shifts. Your mind sharpens. Your path clears. Your confidence grows. Even when it's boring, even when no one claps, you keep going. And that rhythm creates power. You become unstoppable. Stay with it long enough, and you'll watch your life fall perfectly into place, piece by piece. In a few moments, I will teach you how to force yourself to stay consistent until your entire life transforms effortlessly. You will never outrun inconsistency. You say you want to succeed, but how often do your actions match your ambition? You begin with fire in your chest, but by the third day, the flame flickers. One missed task becomes two. Two missed efforts become a habit, and then you're back at the starting line again. Sound familiar? It's not that your dream is too far, it's that your footsteps are too scattered. No man ever reached the mountain by walking in circles, and yet most do exactly that. They commit only in bursts. They rely on mood, on circumstance, on comfort. But the man who builds greatness, he doesn't wait to feel like it. He simply does. Consistency is not glamorous. It's not praised. It's quiet, repetitive, and unseen. But it is the steel that forges all success. Without it, every great plan collapses before the second brick is laid. So what do? You build a rhythm. You tie your habits to time, not mood. You wake up and repeat the task, not because it feels good, but because it must be done. You treat your routine like breathing. Not optional, not occasional, vital. Imagine a man who swings the axe once every week. How long before the tree falls? Now imagine another who strikes every morning without fail. Which one clears the forest? That's your life. Your dream is the forest. Your effort is the axe. And your consistency, your daily discipline, is what brings it all down. So ask yourself, are you attacking your dream with devotion or flirting with it on weekends? Are you showing up regardless of mood or only when it's easy? If everything in your life feels delayed, perhaps it's not because the goal is hard to reach, but because your steps keep resetting. Force yourself to stay the course, because once you do, you'll find a strange magic takes over. The doors begin to open, the results begin to show. And you'll wonder why you ever questioned the process. Small wins compound into unstoppable momentum. You want a transformation, but you overlook the power of today's small victory. You want the big shift, the breakthrough, the applause, the reward, but what you fail to see is that greatness is never earned in one day. It is stacked quietly on top of yesterday's effort. One consistent act, done daily, outweighs 1,000 bursts of passion. The man who trains 5 minutes each morning outpaces the one who trains 2 hours once a month. Why? Because growth is a matter of motion, not magnitude. You must understand this. Every repetition writes a line into your character. Every day you show up, even when it's hard, is a vote toward the man you're becoming. Miss a day, and that vote is cast against your own vision. The path isn't paved by force, it's shaped by rhythm. That rhythm begins with small wins, wins that no one sees, no one praises, but you know they matter. Because deep inside, your confidence grows with each one. So how do you begin? Choose one commitment, just one. Then protect it like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Whether it's rising early, writing one page, walking 1 mile, reading 1 paragraph, stick to it. Do it even if the skies fall. Picture this, a man who adds 1 stone to his wall every day. He doesn't look up, he doesn't rush, he doesn't question. But years pass, and one day he steps back, and there stands a fortress. That can be your life, a fortress of habit, a stronghold of momentum, if only you learn to honor your small wins. So let me ask you, what one act will you commit to today? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because if you want your dream to stand tall tomorrow, you must be willing to lay 1 brick today. Self-belief is a muscle. Train it daily. Every morning, your mind wakes up asking one quiet question. Am I capable? And if you don't answer with action, the world will answer for you. Self-belief is not inherited. It is earned, built, strengthened, and like any muscle, if neglected, it weakens. If you wait to believe in yourself before you act, you will never act. But if you act first, even with trembling hands, you'll become the kind of person you admire. Consistency is the training ground of self-belief. Each day you show up for your goal, you prove that you are not a man of excuses. You are a man of decisions. You are not hoping to become, you are becoming. So where do you start? Right where you are. Speak boldly, decide firmly. Begin your work even if your mind is full of doubt, because every repetition will rewrite that doubt. Imagine this. One man waits to feel courageous, another acts courageously while afraid. Who becomes brave? You already know the answer. If you want to walk with confidence, you must first crawl with commitment. There are no shortcuts, no secrets, only the daily decision to rise, even when it's easier to lie still. So I ask you, what have you done today to earn your own respect? What decision have you made that tells your mind, I can count on you? If your belief is weak, it's not because you're broken. It's because you haven't trained long enough. Show up, prove yourself to yourself, and one day, without warning, your belief will speak louder than your fears. Discipline is a gatekeeper of success. You dream of results, but results don't come to the hopeful. They come to the disciplined. They visit the man who does the work, especially when no one is watching. Discipline is not harsh. It is not punishment. It is the highest form of self-respect. To be disciplined is to say, I value my vision enough to protect it with my actions. Without discipline, you will fall for every distraction. You will trade your future for comfort, and you'll call it bad luck, when in truth it was poor loyalty to your own promise. Discipline isn't built overnight. It's built every hour you say no to what steals from your focus. Every minute you stay the course while your weaker self pleads for escape. So what does it look like? Simple. You define your plan. Then you follow it without negotiation, not with half your heart, not with if I feel like it, but with full resolve. Imagine a blacksmith hammering steel day after day. The blows are repetitive, the sparks fly, the work is intense, but eventually the blade is forged, sharp, strong, unbreakable. That is discipline. Now picture yourself hammering at your goal. Are you striking daily or just on days when it's sunny? Because if you're only showing up in fair weather, you're building a weak blade. So I ask you, can you be trusted with your own dream? Can you be relied on to follow through? Discipline is not about perfection. It is about loyalty. Loyalty to your vision, to your time, to your character. Forge that loyalty, and success has no choice but to bow to your endurance. Repetition shapes reality. You become what you repeat. Not what you hope for, not what you write down in a journal or speak in front of a mirror. You become what you do, again and again, day after day, choice by choice. Repetition is the hand that shapes you, not inspiration, not motivation. A man who acts, even with flaws, even with uncertainty, carves a path forward. But the man who waits for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect mood, builds nothing but delay. The difference is not intelligence or talent. It is motion, because motion rewires the mind. It teaches you what is possible. It silences hesitation. It builds confidence not from words, but from the weight of experience. Each action, each repeated task is a vote for who you are becoming. And the more votes you cast, the more real that identity becomes. It's tempting to chase variety, to believe that progress means constant change, dramatic results, or something new each day. But mastery doesn't come from novelty. It comes from returning to the page, returning to the gym, returning to the discipline. The strongest men in history were not men of sporadic passion. They were men of unwavering repetition. Every empire was built on the back of routine. Repetition is not dull. It is sacred. It is the chisel in the hand of the sculptor, carving beauty from stone. It is the daily scale of the musician, tuning the hand to the note. It is the hammer of the carpenter, driving structure into wood. It is not the act that is sacred, but the return, the faith to come back, even when the progress is invisible. But not all repetition builds you. Some destroys. So you must choose carefully what you repeat. You must ask yourself, do these actions honor the man I want to become? Or are they keeping me chained to the man I used to be? Because every habit is a whisper to your future, and every repetition is a brick in the house you are building with your life. Picture a man standing in a garden. He dreams of fruit. He studies the soil. He draws the perfect diagram. He hopes. He waits. But he never plants. Now picture another man. He wakes each day, digs a hole, and plants a single seed. He does not speak much. He does not wait for the right season. He just plants, day after day. When harvest comes, who do you think is fed? That is the power of repetition. It is slow, it is often silent, but it is certain. One day, your repeated acts will rise around you like the walls of a house quietly built by your own hands. And what once felt unreachable will feel undeniable, because repetition is not just what you do, it is what you become. The world respects the man who finishes. It's not enough to begin. Beginning is easy. Every man starts something, with fire in his chest, clarity in his mind, and confidence in his step. But starting is not the test. Finishing is. The world is full of unfinished books, abandoned businesses, half-written goals, and men who once believed in themselves, but didn't stay long enough to prove it. And maybe that man has been you. You've had moments of brilliance. You've stood on the edge of greatness. You've said, "This time I will see it through." But somewhere between that first spark and the final stretch, you stopped. You drifted. You told yourself you'd return when things got easier, when the timing was better, when life calmed down. But here's the truth. Timing will never be perfect. And the world never rewards beginnings. It waits, it watches, and it bows only to the man who finishes. Completion is rare. That's why it matters. It's not just about getting things done, it's about who you become when you do. A man who finishes what he starts is a man who can be trusted, not just by others, but by himself. He knows that his word is not some faint breath in the air. It's a hammer that builds again and again until the job is done. Your unfinished projects, they cost you more than time. They weaken your belief. They send a message to your own soul. I don't follow through. But imagine what would happen if you broke that cycle. If you said, I finish what I start, always. How different would your life be? Finishing isn't about talent. It's not about speed. It's about grit. It's about staying when the energy runs dry. It's about choosing persistence over mood. When the work becomes boring, when the excitement fades, that's when your character is truly tested. Real growth begins where the thrill ends. And most men never get there because they mistake the end of excitement for the end of purpose. But you are not most men. You can train yourself to become a finisher, to stay in the work until it breathes on its own. That doesn't require applause. It doesn't need external rewards. It only demands one thing, your integrity. Picture this. A man begins building a ship. The frame is up. The wood is fresh. At first, it feels noble, grand. But as the hours drag on, his hands ache, the rain comes, and distractions whisper. He walks away. Days pass. Then months. The ship never touches water. It never becomes what it was meant to be. Now imagine another man. He doesn't look for praise. He isn't faster or stronger, but he returns day after day. He hammers, even when no one's watching. And one morning, the ship is finished. It slides into the sea and sails. That man built something that moves through the world, and he knows he can do it again. You can be that man. But first, you must stop leaving projects half-built. You must stop letting your potential sit in the dark because you didn't feel like seeing it through. Ask yourself honestly, how many half-built bridges are you standing on? How much momentum have you lost to hesitation? What doors would have opened had you simply finished? To become the man who completes what he begins is to unlock a deeper confidence. People trust the finisher. Opportunities are drawn to him. And perhaps most importantly, he trusts himself. That is the foundation of every future victory. So don't just start strong, finish stronger. Make completion your signature, because the world notices, the world rewards, and above all, you become someone unshakable. Never underestimate the power of completion. It is the fireproof seal of your character. And once it's forged, it will carry you through any storm. To read more emotion is a poor master. Obedience to vision wins. You want to follow your passion. That's what the world tells you. Chase the spark. Listen to your heart. Do what excites you. But what happens when the spark fades? When the fire goes cold? When you wake up, stare at the ceiling and feel nothing. No inspiration, no motivation. Just a blank silence where your drive used to live. Most men stop there. They think the feeling has to come back before they move again. So they wait and wait and wait until their dreams rust. That's the difference between the man who builds something great and the man who only dreams. The builder keeps moving without the feeling, because emotion is a child. Loud, demanding, unpredictable. It wants comfort, it wants pleasure, and it wants it now. But vision is the adult. It's quiet, firm, steady. It knows what must be done, and it doesn't flinch. If you want to create something that lasts, you must stop letting your moods drive the wheel. You must stop asking your feelings for permission. Passion may begin your journey, but it will not carry you. Only discipline will. Discipline is what shows up when emotion is gone. It's what gets you out of bed when your heart says stay. It's what puts the pen in your hand, the weight in your grip, the step in your path when every part of you is tired, uninspired, and numb. You don't have to feel good to move forward. You only have to be the kind of man who moves anyway. Because greatness is not awarded to the man who feels the most fire. It's awarded to the man who stokes it when there is none. And this is where most men lose. They wait to feel like it. They look for a sign, a wave of energy, a burst of excitement to pull them back into motion. But waiting is a trap. The mind loves to delay when fear or fatigue enters the room. It will convince you that delay is wisdom, that stillness is safety, but you must see through it. The mind is clever, but it is not always truthful. It does not want growth. It wants comfort. You must override it. What do you do when passion fades? You fall into your process. You lean into your plan. You let the doing carry the becoming. Picture a farmer waking before dawn. The sky is gray, the soil is stubborn, the tools are heavy. He doesn't feel joy. He doesn't feel fire. He feels duty. And that duty moves his feet, grips his hands, and works the land. Because the harvest doesn't wait for him to feel inspired. It waits for consistency. The same is true for you. Your dream doesn't need another day of motivation. It needs another day of movement. Ask yourself honestly, are you being led by your commitment or your condition? Are you ruled by your purpose or your passion? One is permanent, the other is passing. Purpose says do the work. Passion says only when it's easy. The man who builds legacy chooses purpose. And he chooses it daily. You don't need to kill emotion, but you must master it. You must recognize that feelings are just weather. Sometimes clear skies, sometimes storm clouds. But the work remains, the mission remains, the vow you made to yourself remains. If you want lasting results, you must stop needing to feel like it. Your power comes from showing up anyway, from planting seeds even when the sky is dark, from hammering stone even when your hands are tired. Because when your actions rise above your moods, you rise above average. You become the rare kind of man who cannot be stopped by weather, setbacks, or silence. You become dependable, dangerous, disciplined. And when that consistency builds, when that rhythm compounds, suddenly what once felt impossible starts bending in your direction. So remember this, passion may whisper in the beginning, but it's your process that shouts in the end. If you want to live a life most men will never touch, you must do what most men never learn. Keep moving, even when you feel nothing. Because that, my friend, is where your real power begins. The man who controls his time controls his future. Your time is your life, cut into pieces, measured in moments, spent in seconds. And once a piece is gone, it doesn't come back. There is no refund, no rewind, no second harvest from a wasted hour. And yet men toss their time around like spare change. They talk it away, they kill it, as if they have more life than they'll ever need. But you must understand this deeply. When you waste time, you are not just wasting a day, you are wasting strength, your energy, your potential, your becoming. Time is the container that holds your power. And if that container leaks, so does everything you've worked for. Your strength is not infinite. Your vision is not immune to delay. When your hours are undisciplined, your focus suffers. And when your focus suffers, your mission dies slowly. Not in one big crash, but in a series of distracted afternoons and unfinished tasks. You don't lose your dream because you're incapable. You lose it because you failed to guard your time. Structure is what keeps greatness alive. And structure begins with your time, your routine, your hours. Consistency cannot thrive in chaos. It cannot grow in a storm of random decisions. You cannot wing it and expect excellence. If you don't command your day will command you. It will pull you into its noise, its distractions, its petty urgencies, and you'll find yourself exhausted, not because you worked hard, but because you never decided where your energy should go. You must reclaim that decision. You must treat your time like sacred ground. Every hour a resource, every minute a tool, every moment an opportunity to stack a brick on the structure of your vision. That means you schedule your efforts. You give your goals a home on your calendar. You don't just intend to work, you prepare to work. You block the time. You honor the appointment. You treat it as seriously as you would treat a meeting with someone you deeply admire. Why? Because your future is in the room. It's sitting across the table, waiting for you to show up. Imagine two men. One wakes up and reacts to the day. He starts one thing, gets distracted, stops, starts again. Days blur together, progress feels distant. Weeks pass and nothing stands. The other man wakes up and opens a plan. He knows what he's building. He knows where he's placing his time. He doesn't race, he constructs. He moves like a builder, slow, sure, consistent. 1 hour at a time, a structure rises. Not a perfect one, but a real one. because it's built on purpose, not on panic. Your dream is not a fantasy. It is a building, and every day is either a brick or a break. Every scheduled hour is a foundation stone. Every protected moment is mortar between the beams of your destiny. The man who understands this begins to move differently. He doesn't allow time to vanish into vague hopes and empty busyness. He measures, he guards, he respects, because he knows that the hours he commands today shape the freedom he earns tomorrow. So ask yourself, are you spending your time like it's unlimited or investing it like it's all you've got? Are your days driving your destiny or draining it? You don't need more time. You need more authority over the time you already have. That authority is not given. It is enforced. Every morning, every decision, especially on the days when you feel scattered or weak, because that's when it matters most. That's when the difference is made between the man who drifts and the man who builds. A consistent life does not appear on its own. It must be scheduled, designed, defended, not with perfection, but with commitment, with the discipline to say, this hour is mine, and I will use it. You may not control everything that enters your life, but you can command how you spend your next block of time, and from that one decision, an entire future begins to take shape. The man who commands his time commands his future, and that command must be claimed not once but daily, because the man who honors his hour becomes the master of his destiny. You must build before you are seen. You want recognition. You want to be respected. You want success. But the question is, do you want it before you've earned it or as a byproduct of the work? Most men want the applause first. They want to be noticed, praised, celebrated before they've done anything worthy of it. They want the crown before they've carried the weight. But the wise man knows better. He doesn't chase attention. He chases ability. He doesn't care who's watching. He cares what he's becoming. There's a sacred power in obscurity, a rare freedom in being unknown. That's where the real work happens. That's where skill is forged, where strength is tested, where greatness is carved, in silence, in solitude, in darkness. The wise man understands this. He does not cry out for credit. He does not beg for recognition. Instead, he disappears into the grind. He vanishes into his purpose. While others speak, he sharpens. While others post, he prepares. While others parade their half-built image, he builds his unshakable foundation in the shadows. You must learn to fall in love with that silence, with the invisible hours, the early mornings when no one knows you're awake, the quiet evenings when you choose discipline over distraction, the afternoons when you keep going despite the ache, the doubt, the delay. These are the bricks no one sees, but everyone stands on. Results don't come from declarations. They come from devotion. They are born when no one's clapping, no one's filming, no one's liking, sharing, or noticing. They come when your only audience is you. And when that is enough, you become unstoppable. Picture a blacksmith, alone in his shed. There's no music, no lights, no applause, just the rhythm of hammer on steel, the hiss of heat, the sting of sweat. Each day looks the same. Each task feels repetitive, but each strike matters. Each motion sharpens. Time passes. Seasons shift. Still he works. Still he sharpens. Until one day the door opens, and the world sees the finished blade. They admire the weapon, but they miss the struggle. They see the result, but not the process. You must be like that. You must be willing to vanish behind your craft until your work speaks for you. Too many men chase the spotlight without sharpening their sword. They want to be seen, but not shaped. They want to be praised, but not prepared. And when life tests them, they break because they were performing, not becoming. But you're not here to perform. You're here to build, to rise not through noise, but through substance. That means staying faithful when it's boring. It means showing up when it's quiet. It means trusting that your silent work will echo louder than any speech. And when motivation fades, and it will, you must remember who you're doing this for. Not for the followers, not for the likes, not even for the doubters. You're doing this for him, the future version of you. The man who looks back and says, thank you for not quitting. Thank you for not needing praise. Thank you for choosing purpose over performance. That man is waiting for you. And every silent hour you invest today is a gift to him, a foundation, a blessing, a weapon. So I ask you again, are you chasing visibility or value? Are you trying to look the part or become it? There's a world of difference. The man who looks the part fades when the pressure hits. But the man who is the part, he shines when it matters most. Because he didn't decorate himself, he forged himself. In the heat, in the dark, in the silence, let others rush to the stage. You remain in the shed. Let others show off half-formed visions. You build something undeniable. Let them perform. You prepare. Let them talk. You train. And when the time comes, when the curtain opens and the light finally shines, they will hope to be seen, but you will be ready to be known. Because in the end, the world doesn't honor noise. It honors results. It doesn't remember who was loudest, it remembers who lasted. So stay hidden, stay hungry, keep sharpening when no one's watching, because the man who builds in silence will own the stage when the moment comes. Every excuse is a lie against your potential. Excuses feel like truth. They wear the voice of reason, the tone of justification. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'll start tomorrow. They don't scream, they whisper, softly, persuasively. And before you know it, you're nodding in agreement, handing over your discipline like it was optional. But listen closely. Excuses are not truth. They are lies, quiet, clever lies that steal your fire, that sabotage your strength and disguise cowardice as caution. Every excuse you accept is a brick in the wall that blocks you from your potential, and that wall only grows higher the more you listen to it. You think you're too tired? You think you're not ready? That you need more time, more clarity, more energy? The truth is simpler. Beneath every excuse is a quiet refusal to be great, a fear, not always loud, but always present, fear of discipline, fear of failure, fear of success even. Because success demands a version of you that doesn't hide, that doesn't soften the truth, that shows up relentlessly, whether it feels like it or not. And that version of you, that powerful version, scares the part of you that clings to comfort. So instead of rising, you retreat. And you call it self-care, or being realistic, or waiting for the right moment. But make no mistake, each time you let an excuse win, you are practicing betrayal. Not against others, against your own dream. The consistent man sees through this. He doesn't entertain the voice of weakness. He doesn't argue with it. He moves. He doesn't give his excuses a courtroom. He gives them a coffin. He doesn't ask if he feels like it. He simply does it. And the more he moves, the quieter the excuses become. Because excuses cannot survive where action thrives. You want to know how to defeat excuses? You become allergic to comfort. You stop flirting with delay. You train your mind to act before it has time to resist. Because action, once taken, reprograms the brain. It replaces hesitation with momentum. It transforms thought into motion. The consistent man doesn't make 100 emotional decisions every day. He makes one decision about who he is. And that one decision governs everything else. It becomes the compass for his daily action. So when the excuse rises, he doesn't stop to debate it. He follows the direction he's already chosen. Picture a soldier. The alarm sounds. He doesn't sit up and wonder if he feels ready. He doesn't stretch and scroll. He moves. He's trained for this, drilled for this, prepared for this. His feet hit the floor, his body follows, and before his thoughts catch up, he's already in the fight. That is what discipline looks like. That is what defeating excuses feels like. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet obedience to the man you said you would become. And now ask yourself, are you that soldier? Or are you still waiting for the right mood? Still hoping discipline will arrive wrapped in comfort and ease? Still looking for permission to take your dreams seriously? Let me tell you, permission is not coming. Motivation is not enough. And time is not waiting. What is coming is another test, another morning where your bed will feel warm and your excuses will feel reasonable. And on that day, who will win? Ask yourself, what's the excuse you keep making? What's the story you keep telling? What's the soft lie you keep repeating until it sounds like wisdom? And more importantly, what has it cost you? How many opportunities, how many mornings of potential wasted? How many versions of you could have existed by now had you silenced that one excuse every single time it appeared? The man who forces himself forward when everything in him says to stop, that's the man who discovers what he's truly made of. That's the man who earns the right to be respected, not just by others, but by himself. That's the man who doesn't live for comfort, but for conquest, for growth, for greatness. And that discovery, that raw, unfiltered realization that you can act without emotion, that you can move without motivation, that is the beginning of power, real power. The kind that doesn't fade when the mood changes, the kind that shows up when no one's watching, the kind that carries a man from mediocrity to mastery. So stop rehearsing your excuses. You know them by heart, you've recited them enough. What you need now is movement. What you need now is action. Small, reinforcel, repeated. No more debates, no more delays. You're not here to explain why you can't. You're here to prove that you will. And when you rise tomorrow and the voice of hesitation greets you, don't greet it back. Move first. Argue later. That's how greatness begins. That's how excuses die, and that's how the man you were born to be finally takes his place at the table of destiny. No one is coming. You are the rescue. It's a hard truth, but one that must pierce through the fog of your hesitation. No one is coming to save you. Not the friend who cheers you on, not the mentor whose words you admire, not some miracle that lifts the weight for you while you rest. You might be waiting for help to arrive, but here's what most men never understand until it's too late. The help is already within you, buried, dormant, pushed deep beneath layers of doubt, delay, and indecision, but it's there, waiting not for the right moment, but for your command. Most men spend their lives waiting for the season to shift, the situation to improve, the mentor to appear, the sign from above. But the world doesn't move for those who wait. The clock keeps ticking. Your body grows older, your fire grows dim, your dreams decay in silence, while you sit and wonder when someone will knock on the door and carry you forward. But here's the man who rises above all others, the one who takes ownership, the man who declares, if it's to be, it's up to me. He doesn't wait, he doesn't hope, he doesn't outsource his destiny, he acts. And let me be clear, this is not a call to loneliness. This is a call to responsibility. It's not that others won't support you along the way, but they cannot carry you to the finish line. Not consistently, not faithfully, and not in the way you need. If you keep waiting for someone to pull you from the mud, you'll never learn to walk through it. But the moment you say, no one's coming, so I will, everything changes. Because now your strength starts to grow. Now your power begins to compound. You stop hoping and start building. This is the point where most turn back, because ownership is heavy. It exposes all your excuses. It forces you to admit that maybe it wasn't luck, maybe it wasn't timing, maybe it was just you not showing up when it counted. But that's not a reason to feel shame, it's a reason to feel freedom. Because if it's your fault, it means it's also your solution. You are not helpless. You are not a victim of life's timing. You are the cause, the builder, the driver. So what do you do with that power? You wake up and take command. You stop handing your authority to circumstances. You create your own momentum, one disciplined step at a time. You write your own code. You stop waiting for permission and give it to yourself boldly. You show up to your vision. Not because someone told you to, but because you owe it to the man you're becoming. Picture this. A man is stranded deep in the woods, no path, no map, no signal. He could sit and hope, cry out, wait for rescue, and maybe, just maybe, someone would come, but chances are, no one's coming. Now imagine that same man standing up, gathering sticks, sharpening a tool, building a fire, constructing shelter, blazing a trail. He survives, not because he had more help, but because he became the help. He didn't wait, he worked. And when the world finally hears about him, they call him a legend. Not because of where he started, but because of what he chose to do when no one was watching. You're that man, right now, stuck between waiting and working, and you've got a choice. You can sit and wish, or rise and work. There is no third option, no halfway victory, only two roads. One that keeps you small, the other that demands everything but gives you back 10 times more. So ask yourself, how much longer will you wait for someone to believe in you before you finally believe in yourself? That belief is not a feeling, it is a decision. You are the rescue. You are the help. You are the one who must keep showing up even when no applause comes, even when no one notices, even when the silence feels unbearable. Because the applause you think you need, it comes later. It comes after the breakthrough, not before. And when it comes, it won't matter, because by then, you won't need it. This is the turning point, the moment when everything begins, not because something happened to you, but because something awakened within you. Once you understand this, you become unstoppable. You stop waiting to be saved, and instead, you lead, you lift, you build, and most importantly, you endure, because your strength no longer depends on the outside world. It comes from within, forged, proven, unshakable. No one is coming, and that's not a curse. That's the greatest gift life will ever give you, because now you are free. Free to rise, free to fight, free to win, burn the bridge. Back to average. Too many men leave a back door open, a quiet escape route, a place to hide when the pressure builds, when the path gets rough, when the commitment demands more than comfort can offer. They tell themselves it's just in case the dream gets too heavy, just in case the sacrifice becomes too great, just in case the fire burns a little too hot. And while they pretend to move forward, they always keep one eye over their shoulder, fixed on that door, on that soft landing, on that old version of themselves that whispers, "You can always come back." But as long as that door remains open, discipline will be weak. Because why suffer when escape is possible? Why endure the storm when shelter is only a decision away? As long as retreat exists, you'll never truly commit. You'll half-step. You'll pause when you should push. You'll consider options when you should crush them. And the life you say you want, the power, the success, the transformation, it will stay just out of reach. Not because you aren't capable, but because you never fully decided. If you want to rise, truly rise, you must burn the bridge back to average. You must close the exits, seal the cracks, destroy the lifeboats. Not because you crave risk, but because you refuse to go back. You make quitting not just difficult, but unthinkable. You eliminate the comfort that drains your urgency. You create a world where the only direction is forward, where the only identity that matters is the one you are becoming. Men who win do not dabble. They don't flirt with their future. They don't make half-hearted agreements. They marry their mission. They dive head first with no guarantee of safety. And it's not because they love danger. It's because they've made the choice, I will become this man, or I will be broken in the attempt. That is not recklessness. That is resolve. So how do you build that level of resolve? You raise the stakes. You speak your goal aloud. You put your name behind your pursuit. You remove the options that weaken your focus. You say no to the distractions that keep you soft, that offer you emotional anesthesia when you should be forging your edge. And you make quitting so costly, so gut-wrenchingly painful, that pressing forward becomes the only path that doesn't hurt. Imagine a man stepping off a boat onto a foreign shore. His mission is clear: build a new life, conquer the land, claim the future. And the first thing he does, he burns the boat. He looks at the flame. He watches the last option of escape turn to ash. Now, there's no going back, no retreat, no maybe, only forward, only fire, only purpose. Now imagine another man. He lands, he surveys the terrain, he starts the work, but every night he walks down to the shoreline, checks the boat, just to be sure it's still there, just in case it gets hard. And you already know what happens. The moment resistance appears, he hesitates. The moment the mission bites back, he looks at the water and thinks, maybe it's not worth it. That man doesn't conquer. He doesn't transform. He survives. And then he leaves, quietly, forgettably. So I ask you, what boat have you kept intact? What bridge are you holding on to, just in case? What softness still clings to your spine when your soul tells you to stand tall? Is it the comfort of your old habits, the validation of people who don't demand your greatness? The excuses you've refined into clever reasons? Burn them, because until you do, the path forward will remain optional, and optional is the enemy of excellence. If there is a way to back out, your mind will search for it, especially when the fight gets fierce. But if there is no path back, you stop looking. You start building. You learn to stand even when your legs shake. You learn to keep striking even when the blade feels dull. You become the man who adapts, evolves, endures. And that man doesn't beg for motivation. He doesn't wait for ease. He doesn't ask for mercy. He moves forward, always. To build a life of strength, you must destroy the paths to weakness. Not someday, now. Because transformation is not created in comfort. It is born in the pressure of commitment. When the only thing left is the mission, and the only voice you hear is your own saying, I will not break. Close the exit doors, burn the bridge, light the match with your bare hands if you have to, but do it. Because only when there's no going back will the way forward become real. Not an idea, not a hope, but a necessity. And necessity, when paired with commitment, builds the man no one can stop. The days you want to quit are the most important. There will be days when everything inside you whispers, give up. Days when the light you once chased feels distant, even imaginary. When the work you've been doing seems to echo into a void. When your efforts feel like they're building nothing, moving nothing, proving nothing. And in that silence, doubt creeps in, not as a roar, but as a whisper, soft, persuasive, seductive. What's the point, it says. Why keep going? Those are the days that matter most, not because they feel powerful, but because they are. Those days are where men are made or lost. It's easy to be consistent when you feel strong, when the sun is shining, when motivation is high, when results are visible and the path is clear. But what about when it's raining inside your mind? What about when your body aches, your spirit is silent, and the weight of effort feels heavier than progress itself? That's when it counts. Because consistency isn't tested when it's easy, it's revealed when it's hard. The real measure of a man is not how brightly he shines on good days, but how firmly he stands in the dark. Anyone can perform when winning is effortless, but it's the storm that exposes your character, the storm that asks, do you really mean it? And if you do, if you choose to move anyway, then every storm you survive makes you stronger, not because you conquered the storm, but because you didn't run from it. You stepped into it. You kept going through it. That's how power is built, not in glory, but in grit, not in comfort, but in commitment. Every time you persist when you want to quit, you become someone new, sharper, more dangerous, more durable. The hard days are your training ground, your invisible victories. They are the spiritual gym where your discipline lifts weight that no one can see. And while others are waiting for a better time, you're building yourself into a better man. A man who doesn't need perfect conditions to execute. A man who isn't governed by moods, weather, or applause. A man who shows up simply because he said he would. When those days come, and they will, you don't negotiate, you don't reason with your resistance, you don't hold a meeting with your emotions. You act, you move, you finish what needs to be done, not because it feels rewarding, but because it's your vow. A vow to yourself, to your dream, to your future. And you do it with no fanfare, no audience, no reward, just quiet conviction that you're not the kind of man who abandons his post when the winds get rough. Picture a boxer. He's winning, fast on his feet, untouched. It looks impressive, but what happens when he takes a hit? When he's bloodied, breathing hard, backed into the ropes? Does he fold, or does he keep swinging? Now picture another. He's behind on points, exhausted, but refuses to step back. Each punch he throws says, I'm still here. That's the fighter we respect. That's the fighter we remember. Because he didn't win when it was easy. He persisted when it was brutal. That's what life respects. That's what your destiny is waiting for. Not ease, but evidence. Evidence that you won't back down just because the music stopped playing. That you'll keep moving, keep building, keep becoming, especially when you don't feel like it, because anyone can start strong, but only a few finish with power. Only a few keep the promise they made to themselves when no one is watching and everything feels pointless. So what will you do when your strength is low? When your heart is heavy and the world offers no encouragement? You will move anyway. You will act anyway. You will finish the day, not because it lifts your mood, but because it honors your vow. That decision to persist in the dark is the root of greatness. It's what turns effort into endurance, dreams into discipline, hope into habit. The fire of those hard days forges something unshakable inside you, something no failure can touch. Because once you've learned how to move through resistance, real resistance, you're not just building results, you're building identity. You're becoming a man who trusts himself, who doesn't just dream of greatness, but lives it in silence, with blood in his mouth and grit in his soul. This is what it means to be consistent. Not perfect, not always inspired, but faithful. Faithful to the work, faithful to the mission, faithful to the man you promised to become. And that kind of consistency, built in the fire, proven in the storm, makes you unbeatable, not because you never fall, but because you never stay down. Action first, clarity second. Most men wait. They sit quietly in the corners of their lives, hoping for a revelation to arrive. They tell themselves they're thinking, planning, preparing, but underneath all that noise is hesitation. What they truly want is certainty. They want the full map. They want to see every curve in the road, every challenge ahead, every outcome already guaranteed. And until they get that clarity, they hold, they pause, they stall. But life doesn't honor the man who waits for perfection. Life reveals herself to the man who moves, even when everything is unclear. You see, clarity is not the beginning, it is the reward. It is what shows up after you've acted, not before. You cannot think your way into certainty. You must move your way into it. Clarity belongs to those who are willing to walk while the road is still hidden. It comes to those who trust that the next step will be revealed, not because the path is fully illuminated, but because they're brave enough to step into the dark with nothing but their will. The man who waits to be sure never moves. He waits for signs, green lights, or permission that will never arrive. He overanalyzes. He searches for perfect information, perfect timing, perfect alignment, and all the while the clock ticks and the dream decays. He tells himself he's being wise, but wisdom without action becomes regret. And fear, dressed in the clothes of planning, is still fear. But then there's the other man, the one who moves. He doesn't know what comes next, but he walks anyway. He chooses a step. One, just one, he takes it, and then, from that new vantage point, he sees the next. Maybe not clearly, maybe not completely, but enough. Enough to keep going, enough to keep building, enough to stay in motion. And with every step, something remarkable happens. His confidence grows, his strength sharpens, the fog thins. Because he's no longer standing still, waiting for life to hand him direction. He's earning that direction with his effort. So how do you begin when you're unsure? You stop asking for the full answer. You stop demanding certainty, and you pick one action, one task, one habit, one commitment. You do that, then you do another, and another. And suddenly you realize the road is appearing beneath your feet, not because it was never there, but because it was only ever meant to be seen by the one who keeps walking. Picture a man in the dark, holding a lantern. The light barely stretches 10 feet ahead. He can't see the end of the road. He doesn't know if it curves or climbs or leads to something better. But if he keeps moving, 10 more feet appear, and then 10 more. He never sees the full journey, but he always knows the next step, and that is enough. Because the journey is not about seeing everything. It's about becoming someone who moves anyway. That's what most men misunderstand. They think clarity brings courage, but it's the other way around. Courage brings clarity, and courage is found in movement, in doing the hard thing without the guarantee, in choosing to act when your heart is pounding and your mind is screaming, wait just a little longer. That's where power is built. That's where momentum is born. You don't become consistent by having a perfect plan. You become consistent by refusing to stay still, by trusting that action, even imperfect, uncertain action, will teach you more than standing still ever could. Movement turns fear into feedback, doubt into data, confusion into clarity. So ask yourself honestly, are you still waiting to figure it all out? Are you hoping for a feeling of readiness that may never arrive? Or are you willing to be the man who walks forward through the fog, knowing that movement itself is the only compass you need? Life doesn't give direction to the man who waits. It rewards the one who moves. And in the movement, something else happens. You begin to change. Not just your surroundings, but yourself. You start to become the kind of man who can handle the unknown, who can operate in chaos, who doesn't need everything to be clear because he trusts himself to figure it out. That man is dangerous. That man is rare. That man builds empires while others are still debating their first move, because the consistent man doesn't wait for vision, he moves without it. And in doing so, he carves vision out of the very dust and fog that held others back. He does not need the full map, because he becomes the map maker. So move. Move even when you don't know what comes next. Move when you're uncertain. Move when the light is dim, because that first bold step, taken without clarity, is the spark that builds your future. Everything you want, every result, every breakthrough, every transformation begins there, in the unknown, in the fog, in that sacred moment when you act not because you are ready, but because you refuse to wait any longer. The man who endures the boring wins the crown. Everyone wants the fire, the rush, the feeling of something new. Men chase inspiration like it's fuel, like it's required. They hunger for variety, stimulation, something fresh to keep them going. But here's the hard truth most never learn. Growth doesn't live in novelty, it lives in repetition, in the routine, in the dull, the predictable, the mundane, in the tasks that feel small and unremarkable, done again and again until the results are undeniable. And that's why most men fail, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack potential, but because they lack patience for the process. They get bored, they need excitement, so they quit. They abandon the slow, invisible grind in search of the next thrill, the next plan, the next goal, the next tool, the next trick. But the man who wins, he's the one who stays. He's the one who understands that consistency is not always thrilling, but it is always transformative. Greatness is boring. Let that settle in. It's not glamorous, it's not cinematic, it's daily. It's the alarm clock, the quiet repetition, the same movements, same habits, same disciplines, executed with unshakable commitment. Over time, that dull rhythm builds mastery. It builds power that others can't see until it explodes. Because while others were chasing fireworks, you were stacking bricks, and now you have something real. Something sharp, something unbreakable. Training is boring. The gym, the page, the silence, the solitude. Mastery is boring. The way a pianist plays the same scale for years. The way a fighter drills the same strike 1,000 times. The way a craftsman sands and shapes wood long after the excitement is faded. But you know what's not boring? Results. Results are thrilling, results are loud, results are glorious, but they come from the most unglorious effort imaginable. So how do you survive the boredom? You stop chasing excitement like a child. You stop needing to be entertained. You stop asking, am I stimulated? And start asking, am I better? You train your mind to love progress, not variety. You shift your hunger from feelings to outcomes. Because the feeling will lie to you. It will come and go. But the outcome, the result, that's the truth you're building toward. Picture a man sharpening a single blade, day after day, same movement, same steel. The repetition is mechanical, monotonous, no audience, no thrill. But what emerges is a sword that cuts through anything. Precision, power, efficiency. He has trained not just the blade, but himself. Now picture another man. Every day he picks up a new blade, something fresh, something different. He's excited, sure, he's got variety, but no edge, no mastery. He has many weapons, but none of them are sharp, none of them are ready, because he never stayed long enough to shape anything fully. And when the moment comes to strike, he hesitates, because all he has is options, not skill. So ask yourself this: can you do the same thing every day without applause? Can you repeat your practice without needing praise? Can you show up not for the rush, but for the refinement? That's the test. That's what separates the dabblers from the dangerous. Because mastery is not a result, it's an identity. It's who you become when you stop needing everything to feel good and start choosing what will make you great. If you can love the grind more than the glory, everything changes. Because now you're no longer driven by emotion, you're driven by vision. You don't need novelty to stay committed. You don't need to feel inspired to execute. You're not addicted to the spark. You're devoted to the flame, the long burn, the quiet, steady burn of repetition. And yes, it gets dull. Yes, it's lonely. But that's where the gold hides. That's where the real power is buried. It's in those silent mornings, those quiet repetitions, those days when no one's watching and nothing feels new, but you do it anyway. And each time you do, you dig a little deeper. You sharpen the edge a little more. You move a little closer to the man you're becoming. Because only those who conquer boredom wear the crown. Only those who stay when the excitement leaves get to hold the reward. The crowd cheers for the performance, but they never see the preparation. And that's fine. Let them cheer later. You're not here for noise. You're here to build something immortal. So don't ask for stimulation. Don't ask for variety. Ask only this: am I doing the work that sharpens me? And if the answer is yes, keep going. Even if it's quiet, even if it's dull, especially because it's dull. That's how you know the edge is forming. That's how you know greatness is near. And when it's finally your time to strike, you'll be ready. Because while the others were entertained, you were becoming a weapon. You don't rise to the level of motivation. You fall to the level of routine. There's a dangerous belief, subtle, seductive, that lives in the minds of most men, that success is built on motivation, that the secret lies in feeling inspired, fired up, emotionally charged, that once the right words hit your ears or the right moment stirs your heart, you'll finally rise to your potential. And so they wait for the spark, for the lightning bolt, for the mood that makes the work feel lighter. But here's the truth no one wants to say aloud: you do not rise to your motivation, you fall to your habits. When the emotion fades, and it will fade, you collapse into whatever structure you've built. You fall back on your routine, on your systems, on the pattern you've repeated so many times it's no longer a decision, it's simply who you are. This is the dividing line between those who flirt with greatness and those who marry it. Because when the wind dies down, when the excitement leaves, the man who's waiting to feel like it crumbles. But the man who's trained himself to act regardless, he continues, he climbs, he endures. Your routine, then, is either your prison or your ladder. It either traps you in mediocrity, or it builds a structure so solid that you rise without even thinking. And every day you follow it. You reinforce the identity you're constructing. Every small repetition, each choice made without fanfare or feeling, is a brick. Over time, that wall rises, that staircase builds, and it leads somewhere that emotion alone could never take you. The man who only works when inspired, he sees flashes of brilliance. He gets moments, glimpses, and those moments feel good, addictive even, but they're fleeting. They never build enough momentum to transform. The man who builds structure, who crafts his day with discipline and defends it with intensity, he doesn't wait for highs because he is high performing by design. He's dependable, not dramatic. He wins in the silence, not the spotlight. So what should your routine be? It's not about complexity, it's about consistency. Wake at the same hour. Begin your primary task at the same time. Protect those first minutes like they are sacred, because they are. They set the rhythm. They teach your mind that feelings don't govern action. Commitment does. And in that rhythm, laziness loses its grip. Distraction becomes weaker. Resistance, that inner voice whispering, "not today," gets quieter each time you ignore it and do the work anyway. Imagine a clock tower standing in the middle of a town. It doesn't ask if the people are watching. It doesn't care about the weather. It chimes every hour, on time, every day, without fail. And because of that steady rhythm, the people organize their lives around it. Markets open, shops close, meals are shared, all set by a structure that doesn't waver. That's what your routine should become. Not dramatic, not emotional, but constant, reliable, a force that moves regardless of the noise around it, or the noise inside you. Because here's the deeper question. What does your day fall into when motivation vanishes? What do you become when no one is cheering, when you're tired, when the fire isn't burning in your chest? If the answer is chaos, inconsistency, and delay, then the issue isn't your dream, it's your design. You haven't built a life that can hold you up when you no longer feel strong. The truth is, motivation may start the journey. It's the ignition, the spark, but it doesn't carry the weight. It doesn't drive the miles. That burden falls to routine, to the dull, unglamorous repetition that doesn't care how you feel. It only cares that you show up. If you want to become consistent, you don't need more motivation. You need to build a structure that survives your worst days, a rhythm that doesn't break when you're exhausted, just because that's where your future is built, in the cold hours when discipline is your only fuel. Look closely at the men who achieve extraordinary things. You'll find very few emotional fireworks. You'll find relentless order, systems, routines, foundations built in silence. And that silence, the part no one sees, that's where real power lives. Not in the moments of inspiration, but in the hundreds of mornings that begin the same way, the hundreds of reps that feel identical, the repeated behaviors that over time form identity. Your future will never rise higher than the pattern you repeat. And if that pattern is weak, if it relies on how you feel, if it shifts with the winds of comfort or fear, then your foundation is cracked. But if it is solid, if it is built on actions that do not ask for your emotions' permission, then your future is unshakable. It becomes inevitable. So stop chasing motivation. Stop waiting to be lifted. Lift yourself by crafting a structure that never misses a beat. Make your life a clock tower, unshaken, unmoved, always ringing the bell. Not for applause, not for others, but because that's what you do. That's how consistency is born, and from that consistency, everything else grows. Reward is always delayed. That's the test. The results you want, the transformation you crave, the success you envision, the strength you're building, they don't arrive overnight. And that truth is harder to accept than most men will admit, because in a world that promises instant gratification, immediate results, and rapid change, the waiting feels like failure. You give your time, you give your energy, you commit your heart to the work, and then nothing happens. No applause, no breakthrough, no clear sign that your effort is paying off. Just silence, stillness, routine. That silence is where most men quit. It's not the hard work that breaks them, it's the absence of reward. It's the space between action and outcome that tempts them to step away. That delay, that hollow gap between sowing and reaping is where most ambition dies. Not because the goal was unreachable, but because the man couldn't endure the waiting. But here's the truth. Every meaningful result is delayed. Nature demands a gap between planting and harvest. A seed doesn't bloom because you want it to. It blooms because you waited for it, nurtured it, believed in it, even when nothing broke the soil. A farmer doesn't drop seeds on Monday and fill baskets by Friday. A sculptor doesn't strike a block of marble and see beauty in an afternoon. Real creation, real results require something more than effort. They require faith. That lag, the stretch of time when the world gives you no confirmation, isn't just an inconvenience. It's the test. That is where the process separates the committed from the curious. What's being tested in that silence isn't your skill, but your spirit, your consistency, your patience, your willingness to trust that just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not working. Most people quit because they measure progress with the wrong tools. They want immediate validation, proof, applause, and when they don't get it, they assume they're broken. But they're not broken, they're just impatient. They don't understand that mastery looks like monotony, that progress for a long time looks exactly like standing still until it doesn't. Imagine a sculptor working day after day on a massive block of stone. From the outside, the stone doesn't change. Strike after strike, hour after hour, the surface holds. The world watches and shrugs. Nothing's happening, but the sculptor knows better. He knows the process is cumulative. He knows the structure inside is weakening, that eventually the surface will crack. And when it does, the shape will emerge, not suddenly, but inevitably, because the strikes mattered, all of them, even the ones that didn't leave a visible mark. That's what your work is like. You keep striking, you keep returning, you wake up, you follow the process, you honor the discipline, and some days you'll wonder if it's worth it, you'll question if you're even moving, but that's where most men fail. They judge the process too early, they abandon it right before the stone begins to crack. So I'll ask you directly, have you been quitting too soon? Have you let the absence of results convince you to step away from the very thing that was about to reward you? What if the silence was not a sign to stop, but a signal to stay? The waiting is not a punishment. It is a confirmation that your dream is real, that what you're building is valuable. Because anything that comes instantly is usually cheap, and anything worth having is worth enduring for. Delayed reward is not denial. It's how the universe ensures you're ready for what you asked for. It's how it sharpens you, so that when the harvest arrives, you can handle it. And make no mistake, the harvest will come, the results will arrive, not just as a small pat on the back, but as a flood. All those invisible days, they'll show up in your character, in your confidence, in the way people suddenly call you lucky, not realizing that luck was earned in the silence they never saw. So don't quit, don't pivot, don't throw away the hammer just because the stone hasn't cracked yet. Keep chiseling, keep planting, keep showing up. Your discipline is not wasted. Your consistency is not pointless. Every day you move without evidence is a day you train your soul to be stronger than your circumstances. That's the man who wins. Not the one who feels inspired, but the one who stays faithful, who trusts the invisible, who believes in the law of harvest and lives like the reward is already on its way. Because it is. And when it comes, it will not be small. It will not be subtle. It will be everything you endured, returned with interest. 1,000 quiet hours turned into a single moment of undeniable power. Stay in the work. Your future is already taking shape beneath the surface. Let others chase the quick win. You're here for something eternal. Most people stop at 80%. You must push past that. There's a strange pattern among men. Most begin with fire in their belly. They set goals with fierce ambition. They sprint, they sacrifice, they give their energy, time, and focus with everything they have. In the early stages, they are unstoppable, motivated, consistent, burning with conviction. And then something shifts. Around the 80% mark, that fire starts to flicker. The edge dulls, the urgency fades. They slow down, they start to drift. Why? Because 80% gives the illusion of being done. You've done more than most. You've outpaced the crowd. You've endured the storm, weathered the chaos, climbed the mountain, and now the peak is in sight. That's where comfort whispers, you've done enough. And that voice, it's dangerous, because while you feel like you're near the end, you're standing at the most important threshold of the entire journey. That final 20%. That's where greatness lives. But it's also where resistance hits the hardest. Fatigue settles in. Boredom creeps up. Doubt grows louder. The applause fades. The novelty is gone. You begin questioning if finishing is even worth it. And right there, when you're almost there, is where most men fold. Not in the beginning, not in the middle, but just before the breakthrough, just before the reward, just before mastery. Because the final stretch demands a different kind of strength, not the flash of inspiration, not the rush of starting, but the grit of finishing. It demands that you push without fanfare, that you press forward when progress feels invisible, that you give everything again, even when you feel like you've already given enough. And this is where the consistent man rises. The consistent man knows the crown is not given at 80%. It's reserved for the finisher, for the one who crosses the line, for the man who refuses to settle for almost. He understands that the journey isn't measured by how strong you start, but by whether you complete what you began. And when that final wall rises, when everything in you screams to slow down, he breathes, he straightens his posture, and he keeps going, one step, then another, and another, not because it feels good, but because he said he would. Imagine a runner in a race. From the beginning, he leads with grace. He builds distance. He dominates the track. But as the finish line nears, he eases up. He assumes the race is won. Meanwhile, another runner, slower, less gifted, keeps his pace. He stays behind, but he never stops pressing. And as the leader fades in the last stretch, the relentless one pushes forward. He overtakes him, not because he was faster, but because he refused to slow down. The victory belongs not to the one who started strong, but to the one who finished stronger. That's life. That's mastery. And it begs the question, what have you left 80% done? What book sits unfinished? What business sits half-launched? What relationship, what commitment, what version of yourself have you abandoned in the final stretch? How many rewards have slipped through your fingers simply because you let fatigue become your final decision? Understand this. The last 20% is not like the first. It isn't about volume, it's about precision. It's where details matter, where focus tightens, where the ordinary become extraordinary through sheer completion. This is the part where excellence is separated from effort. You may have worked hard to get here, but the final push is what proves it. The last chapter is the one that defines the story. The final reps are the ones that transform your body. The final decisions are the ones that shape your legacy. And if you walk away now just shy of the finish line, you don't get to keep the title. You don't get the reward. You don't wear the crown. You must force yourself to finish. Not in name, not in partial credit, but fully, completely, without excuse. You must step over the line. No matter how long you've been running, you do not stop until it's done, because mastery is not found in the beginning stages. It's earned in that quiet, brutal stretch where everything hurts and no one's watching, where the only voice cheering is the one inside you saying, finish what you started. And the man who learns to thrive in that space, he becomes a force, a finisher, a man others can count on, not just to start the job, but to complete it with excellence. So look at your life, look at your work, look at the goals you once set with fire. Are they still burning, or have you let them cool just before they were complete? Be honest, then act. Not someday, not when the conditions are perfect, but now. Return to what you left undone. Push into the last 20%. That's where the treasure is buried. That's where the transformation completes. Because it's not how hard you tried. It's not how much you sacrificed. It's not how far you came. It's whether you finish the race. Finish it. You become what you repeat in private. Your real power is not built in public. It's not forged under the bright lights or in the center of applause. It's not found in the curated moments that people celebrate. It's built in the invisible hours, in silence, in solitude, in the quiet corners of your life where no one is watching and no one will ever know what you did or what you didn't. It's in those moments, far from validation or reward, where your character is carved. Most men misunderstand this. They believe performance in public is the measure of greatness. But performance is only the echo. The real work, the transformation, the strength, the refinement, happens far from sight. When the world sleeps and you stay up to write. When the house is quiet and you train. When there is no one to impress, no crowd to cheer, no prize to claim. That's when your power is built. That's when your identity is either reinforced or rewritten. Because what you repeat in secret shapes who you are. Not once, not sometimes, but every single time. It's not the bold declarations that define you, it's the subtle rituals, the daily standards you either uphold or abandon. You want to be consistent? Then stop waiting for someone to hold you accountable. Stop depending on applause. Stop hoping someone checks in. Start holding yourself to a standard so high that your future self looks back in awe. That's real discipline. That's inner force, when no one's watching and you still choose the harder path. Most men crumble when the structure of visibility disappears. Without an audience, they stall. Without recognition, they slow down. But the ones who win, they don't need supervision. They don't need permission. They've trained themselves to care in the dark. They've built a furnace of discipline inside, and it burns even when the world offers nothing in return. Because here's the secret. The man who repeats greatness in private will show greatness in public. Not always immediately, but inevitably. The one who practices honor, integrity, strength, excellence without being seen will in time become the kind of man the world admires, not because he performed, but because he became. So how do you build this unseen discipline? You treat the invisible moments like they matter. You carry the weight of your purpose into the quiet. You show up, even when there's no proof it will pay off. You train like your legacy depends on it, because it does. You wake up before anyone else, not because it's impressive, but because it shapes you. You keep your word to yourself when there's no one to shame you if you break it. That's where real identity is born. Picture a violinist in a small, bare room. No seats, no stage, no audience. Day after day, he plays the same scales, the same movements, fingers calloused, shoulders aching. No applause, no recognition, just repetition. Years pass. And then, one day, he steps onto a grand stage. The crowd gasps. They say, he's gifted. But it wasn't a gift. It was the accumulation of invisible hours. Hours the world didn't see, but now can't ignore. What about you? What are you rehearsing in the dark? What do you practice when no one's watching, when there are no likes, no followers, no external reward? Because that's what builds you. That's what tells the truth. You don't become consistent by showing off. You become consistent by showing up over and over when it would be easier not to. Your identity is not the mask you wear in public. It's not the image you curate. It's not the lines you say when the camera's on or the spotlight is yours. Your identity is who you are when no one is watching. That's the truth. The rest is performance. And if you want to change your life, stop focusing on what the world sees and start focusing on what you repeat behind closed doors. Because that is where the story shifts. That is where the man is made. In the quiet hours, your habits whisper who you are becoming. In your choices, unseen, uncelebrated, you write your legacy. So what are you choosing? What are you practicing? What are you tolerating when it's just you and the silence? Make it sacred, make it powerful, make it yours. Because in the end, you won't rise to the level of your goals. You'll fall to the level of your private standards. And the only way to raise your life is to raise your behavior when no one is watching. Discipline in private is what builds greatness in public. So turn off the noise, walk into the silence, and build the kind of man the world cannot ignore. Consistency is not a trait, it is a decision. Some men believe that consistency is a gift, that a few are simply born with it, wired for it, destined to rise early, work hard, and never falter. And the rest, they tell themselves they're not built that way. They watch from the sidelines, admiring those who have it, and quietly accept inconsistency as a permanent flaw in their nature. But that belief is not only false, it's dangerous because it gives you permission to stay weak. It gives you a story to hide behind, and it removes the one truth that could change everything. Consistency is not in your blood, it's in your decisions. It's not a trait you inherit, it's not some divine stroke of luck, it's a choice you make. Not once, not when you're feeling good, but every single day. You decide to rise, you decide to act, you decide to finish, even when your body is tired, even when your mind argues, even when nothing around you encourages it. That choice, the daily choice to show up, is where consistency is born. Waiting to become consistent is like waiting to get strong before you lift weights. It reverses the truth. You do not get to be consistent by accident. You become consistent through action, through repetition, through stubbornness. You show up weak, you show up unsure, you show up scattered, and you become solid by doing it anyway, over and over. That is the grind. That is how discipline is formed. And if you want to make that decision stick, if you want to cross the line from trying into becoming, then you must stop treating consistency like a wish. Stop hoping it shows up. Stop flirting with it when life feels easy. You must treat it like a law, an unbreakable standard, something non-negotiable, like gravity, like breathing. You build a standard so strong that even on your worst days you follow it, not because it feels good, but because it's who you are now. This is where structure becomes your ally. Think of a train. It doesn't wake up and wonder which direction to go. It doesn't wander off course every time the wind changes. It follows the rails. The structure creates the movement. The rails are what carry the engine forward, even when the terrain gets rough. Your habits, your repeated actions are those rails. If you build them strong, your life moves forward automatically, even when you're tired, even when motivation disappears, even when doubt rises. But if you fail to lay those rails, if you live each day reacting, guessing, deciding in the moment, you will derail the moment resistance appears. That's why habits matter more than intention. That's why structure matters more than emotion. Because when your mind wavers, it's your rails that keep you moving. So the question becomes, what are you building? Are your daily choices setting down a track that leads to strength, to clarity, to power? Or are you laying rails that lead to chaos, distraction, and regret? Are you waiting for consistency to show up, or are you choosing it? Because that's what it takes, a choice. And not just once, 1,000 small choices, 1,000,000 quiet decisions. Choosing to wake up when it would be easier to sleep. Choosing to focus when it would be easier to scroll. Choosing to finish when it would be easier to quit. And every time you choose it, you're not just reinforcing a behavior, you're reinforcing an identity. That's the secret most missed. Consistency isn't something you do, it's someone you become. It's not just waking up early, it's becoming a man who rises. It's not just finishing the workout, it's becoming a man who completes what he begins. Every action reinforces the image. Every repetition engraves the identity. And eventually that identity becomes so solid, so undeniable, that your entire life starts to move in alignment with it. That's when everything begins to change. Because the man who lives from identity no longer needs to be convinced. He no longer debates. He doesn't wake up wondering if he should work. He works because that's who he is. His life aligns, his habits support him, his standards carry him, and success becomes a natural consequence of how he lives, not some distant fantasy he hopes to reach. So if you're still waiting for consistency to find you, stop. You are not powerless. You do not need permission. The path is not mystical. It is mechanical. You build it through your choices. You reinforce it through your actions. You embody it through your standards. And when you do, when you finally decide that this is who you are now, then the world responds, not to your hope, but to your certainty. Because once you stop waiting and start choosing, consistency is no longer a struggle. It becomes your foundation, your rhythm, your reality. And from there, greatness is simply a matter of time. Repetition builds identity. You become what you do daily. You think you are what you believe. That what lives in your mind, your hopes, your values, your intentions is enough to define you. But that's only a fragment of the truth. Belief alone is not the full measure of who you are, because belief without repetition is potential without substance. The reality is more raw, more demanding. You are what you repeat, not what you say, not what you dream, what you do. Day in and day out writes the truth of your identity. Your intentions may feel noble. You may speak of ambition, integrity, and discipline. You may declare that you're a man of your word, but until that declaration is backed by consistent action, it remains a hollow echo in the chambers of your own mind. Identity is not declared, it is carved. And the chisel is consistency. Every day that you rise and keep your word, even in the smallest of things, you are building the frame of a dependable man. With each promise honored, each task completed, each routine respected, you reinforce that you are someone others, and more importantly, you can trust. But every time you cut corners, delay what matters, or break even a quiet promise to yourself, you chip away at that structure. You train your brain to believe that your word is flexible, that your values are negotiable, and over time, the world sees what you silently told yourself: you can't be counted on. This is the uncomfortable truth most avoid. They want the result without the ritual. They want to feel strong without doing what makes them strong. They think identity is formed in bursts of inspiration or dramatic choices, but it's not. Identity is forged in repetition, in showing up again and again and again, even when it's cold, even when it's lonely, even when no one is clapping. You cannot think your way into greatness. You cannot sit with your eyes closed and wish yourself into a better man. You must act your way there. Thought without action is a mirage. It may feel good, it may look promising, but it has no weight in the real world. Every action you take is a brick. One brick won't build a home, but stacked day by day, they form the unshakable foundation of the man you are becoming. So how do you become the man you admire? Not by speaking about him, not by dreaming of him, but by acting like him. You choose one act, one small discipline, one meaningful habit that reflects the character of the man you wish to become, and you repeat it, not for a week, not when it's easy, always, without fail. And in time, something remarkable happens. That action, once forced, becomes natural. What once took energy becomes automatic. The repetition wires your brain, reshapes your nervous system, rebuilds your self-image. And suddenly, you're no longer pretending to be that man. You are him, no longer through effort, but through identity. Picture a craftsman in his workshop. He lifts the same hammer each morning, the same strike, the same wood, the same motion. For years, his hands, once soft, are now rough and strong. His shoulders, once narrow, are broad. His movements are precise. His eyes see patterns others miss. Not because he studied more, but because he did more. He earned his instincts. He built his strength. And it didn't come in a weekend, it came in repetition. Now ask yourself with brutal honesty, what are you repeating? What do your days look like? Not in your head, but on the clock. Are you practicing the habits of greatness or rehearsing the patterns of mediocrity? Are your daily decisions building the man you want to be, or are they slowly confirming that you're not serious about him? If your life feels inconsistent, it's not because you lack potential. It's because your identity is still being negotiated. You're still trying to convince yourself of who you are instead of deciding who you are. And once you decide, really decide, everything changes. Not because life becomes easier, but because your internal standard becomes non-negotiable. When you lock in your identity, you no longer ask, should I? You already know the answer. You don't need a mood. You don't need motivation. You operate from alignment, not emotion. And that alignment pulls your life into place. If you want to change your life, change what you do daily. Not once in a while, not when it's convenient, every single day. And if you want to stay changed, stay consistent. Because transformation doesn't come from intensity, it comes from duration. The world doesn't believe in your declarations. It doesn't believe in who you say you'll be someday. It believes in what you prove, one action at a time. You want to be strong? Then do the things a strong man does every day. You want to be disciplined? Then make discipline your rhythm, not your reaction. You want to be dependable? Then keep your word in private, even when it costs you, even when no one would know if you slipped. That is how you build a man who can be trusted. The truth is simple, brutal, but simple. You are what you repeat. And the beautiful part, you can start becoming someone new today, not by changing everything, but by choosing one action that reflects who you want to be and repeating it with relentless consistency. Your identity is not a story you tell, it's a life you build. Brick by brick, habit by habit, day by day. Repeat the right things and you will become the right man. Not overnight, but inevitably. Consistency isn't exciting. It's not glamorous, but it works. If you show up every day, no matter how you feel, you will win. The world bends for those who refuse to quit. So don't chase results, chase the rhythm. Keep doing what matters again and again. Force yourself to be consistent and watch how quietly, how powerfully everything begins to fall into place.